reaching out, Verity reaching out, asking me to contribute to your club and share some messages of what I've learned through my Toastmasters experience. And I have to tell you, my morning was open, and I've got an appointment I have to go to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the first part of this on my computer, and then with the marvels of technology, I'm going to switch to my phone, and we're going to get in my car, and I'll do all the Q&A with you driving down the freeway in Los Angeles. How's that? So that's how you handle things with adversity, okay? So let me, I have a little different twist on Toastmasters than a lot of people I talk to, because this organization and the opportunities I found with it dramatically changed many components of my life. And yes, I'm the 2005 world champion of public speaking. And I had somebody in, I don't know, it was like 2010, write me on Facebook, and they said, Lance, when you decided to go for the world championship in 2005, what was your inspiration? And I said, 2005? I started in 1993. You know, I started competing in 1993. I joined Toastmasters in very late, like October, November of 1992. In the first competitions, I was speaking, and it wasn't 2005. It was a 13-year journey of losing and figuring out how to do a speech and figuring out how not to do a speech, which was probably more important. But I lost the international speech competition for 9 years, actually 8 years. I won it the 9th year at my club. Okay, now at the same token, I'm going to share with you something. We were building a phenomenal club at the time, and the club competition was probably as difficult, if not more difficult, than the district competition. But I went to district 4 times. Back then we had the regions. I went to regions 3 times. And one of the biggest things I learned through competing was how to lose, because I really wasn't a good loser up to that point. And I really had to learn how to lose and embrace losing and embrace failing as a learning experience, and really not looking at it as that I lost, what did I learn through the process? And that's really one of the things I try to pass on to the many people I have the opportunity to coach now. And I'll be coaching somebody, and they'll be going to an area contest or a division contest, and they'll write back and they said, oh, I didn't even place. That's the idea of this little short email that comes in. Oh, I didn't even place. And I write them back and I said, how did you feel about your speech? And what did you learn from the process? And I wound up getting this email that's about 8 paragraphs long when I asked that question. And one of the things that I really look at Toastmasters is I had an attitude that if I couldn't do it in Toastmasters, I can't do it in life, because Toastmasters is easier than life. And I was never in Toastmasters to be great in Toastmasters. That was not my purpose for being here. It was trying to get my basically act together so I could succeed in life like I wanted to. And things weren't going as well as I felt they should. And I want to share a couple stories outside of my Toastmasters experience with you to give some relative comparisons to them. I grew up in the Midwest of the United States in a very small community of about 2,000 people. I was the 4th generation in that community. My family was one of the predominant employers there, which wasn't a big deal because it was such a small community. But we had a milk and ice cream business that I grew up working in. And the area was very flat, a lot of corn, a lot of soybeans, a lot of cows, and a lot of hogs. And I talked my parents into sending me to Colorado, to the Rocky Mountains, to a mountaineering and leadership school when I was 14. And I was spent 5 weeks in the Colorado Rocky Mountains, climbing cliffs and being pushed down snow fields and learning how to arrest myself so I didn't slide down and hit the rocks, and rafting rivers. And then we wound up hiking 10 days through the Rocky Mountains as a group of 6 of us. We had to do everything ourselves, read topo maps, figure out all of our problems. And I remember coming home and I said, mountaineering and leadership, I didn't learn anything about leadership. I learned how to mountaineer. There was no leadership lessons in that. And I came home, and it wasn't until I came back to my little town in Indiana that I realized the leadership skills that I'd actually acquired. I was thinking differently than my classmates and my friends because of what I'd been through. I had learned to handle very challenging adverse conditions in the mountains and I learned that I could handle them. And as I went on forward in life, there would be situations that came up where maybe the car didn't start, or we had a lot of bad weather, snow and ice. Somebody slides in a ditch or something, and you go, let's get it out of the ditch. We can get this thing out of the ditch. Let's get 4 people, push the car out. Everybody else is sitting there going, oh, we don't know what to do. It was that attitude and the idea that I could figure this out and we can make something happen here were the leadership lessons that I started to learn. A couple other things to share with you. I had and I still do have a huge love of adventure. And I love the speaker that was just talking about sailing. I started sailing when I was about 8 years old. And my family had a lot of flying. A lot of us flew. My grandfather and I had 2 uncles that flew. And I got my pilot's license when I was 19 and started flying regularly. And when I was 20, I got in a sailboat and sailed from the Virgin Islands to Norway across the North Atlantic with, it was part of a program, but it was a very loosely run program. But in those environments, leadership school, flying, sailing, I was never being trained for a grade. But when I went to school, all my education was based on a grade. When I was learning to fly, it was based on being competent. It was based on me being able to think through whatever situation I got into, that I knew I could take that airplane up and bring it down safely and not die in the process. When I was learning to sail, it was about competence. It was about being able to figure out how to handle that boat, being able to use celestial navigation to know where we were on the surface of the earth, knowing how to pilot it, knowing how to safely tie knots, knowing how to furl sails, knowing how to fix the engine, all the things you had to do so you could survive. And I was really good in my early years at adventure activities. I would plan trips and we would come off to the dollar and to the minute on exactly what we were trying to do. So I would pack things in on the weekends and stuff, but I was running into a considerable amount of problems when I would be in work environments because the skills I'd learned in the adventure environment didn't mesh with the work environment. I had people above me trying to tell me what to do, and there was a lot of friction in those environments for me. And that was an area I was struggling with quite a bit. Now, just a couple other things. I've done 5 business startups. I haven't been the founder of the business. I have been part of the key executives teams or staff that have been brought in for them. And the first one was right out of university. I was 23 years old. We had a milk and ice cream business. We produced probably 300 products that were all date sensitive, bacteria sensitive, refrigeration sensitive, weight sensitive, all this sort of stuff. Very complicated processing to process the milk, freeze the ice cream, have everything work so that you have a good product that's not spoiled or rotten when it hits the consumer's hands. We couldn't get any ice for our convenience stores, so we decided to start an ice company. My dad did right when I was getting out of university, and we studied the ice business for 3 years, and then we built this ice company. And I want you to compare this to Toastmasters just for a second. So here we're in this dairy business, and we have this very complicated processing we have to do. We're going to put 10 pounds of ice in a bag and go sell it. How simple is that? So we built the plant. We could get an old building. We refurbished the building, put the ice machines in it, and we're going to put 10 pounds, which is about 4 kilos of ice in a bag, and sell it. And we go out to we sell some of them. We go out to a big supermarket, and they said, we want a 7-pound bag, not a 10-pound bag. And we said, we'll sell you a 10-pound bag, the same price as a 7-pound bag. And they said, no, you don't understand. With a 7-pound bag, we get more bags in our case, and we get more inventory turns, and we get more sales. We want 7 so we can have more sales. If you don't give us 7, we don't want your business. So we started making a 7-pound bag. Then we went out to the bars and the nightclubs, and they said they wanted a 15-pound bag. We said, we'll sell you 2 10s for the same price as a 15. They go, you don't understand. On a Friday night, I don't want to sit here tearing up bags of ice open. I want to tear the bag of ice open and start serving drinks. I want to move on this. Give me a 15 or don't give me your business. So we started making 15-pound bags. And then we went out to the campgrounds and the reservoirs, and they said, we want block ice, which is a completely different product. And we started making block ice. And then we found we bought the wrong ice machines. The ice we made was made on a flat surface, and when it melted, it stuck together as a block, and people wanted their ice to be loose. So we had to take those machines out and bring new machines in and make a round ice that's made through a tube, so that when you snap it on the ground or something, all the ice breaks loose and the ice is loose. And then we went through 8 material handling systems on how to take the ice bag off the truck and get it in the store without it melting or it being torn up and everything. And that was for a 10-pound bag of ice. Now, very similar with Toastmasters, we're going to go in and run this simple little Toastmasters club. But the detail it takes to run that club is really where the benefit comes in Toastmasters. Is we, just like the leadership, we've got to figure out how to make the club work. And to me, the Toastmasters experience is really the experience of learning how to make things go right when they aren't. Because you have a meeting and then somebody doesn't show up, or God help us, 5 people don't show up. 2 speakers didn't show up. I don't have an evaluator. There's no timer, and we still have to get the meeting started and on time. And we learn to think with the variables when things aren't going right and bring them together and pull it off. The same way with running the meeting or running the club, being a club officer. The membership isn't where it needs to be. We don't have the activity we need to. We don't have the guests coming to the meeting we do. We have to figure out how to make that happen. And to me, this is just a phenomenal opportunity to enhance our ability to manage people and to know how to handle adverse environments. And the fact is, COVID is a great adverse environment, but you know what? Every week in Toastmasters is an adverse environment. Because every week in Toastmasters, things go wrong, and we have to get used to just handling them. And I can't tell you how many things I've done that I just fall back and I go, I mean, I'm in complicated business situations and we're trying to pull something off and it's not working. And I go, okay, big deal. It's not working. Every week at my Toastmasters club, it doesn't work, but every week at my Toastmasters club, we make it work. So you have this viewpoint that no matter what happens, I'm going to make this work. And because of that viewpoint I got in Toastmasters, my management executive career started taking off. And also the communication skills. I'll tell you one of the key things was, and Verity was talking about the speech I gave, which is, you know, do you validate? When we were building my club, and my club when I joined in 1992 had 35 members, and in August of 93, we had 12 coming to the meeting, and it was going down pretty fast. We had to decide if we're going to keep it or not. And we decided if we're going to do Toastmasters, let's win with Toastmasters, or let's go do something else and win with it. As one of my friends said, he didn't want to belong to hospice Toastmasters, where we keep the members comfortable until the club dies, you know. And so we decided to be a top 10 club in the world. And back in the 90s, we had a distinguished club program that I really loved. They don't have it today, and I think it's a big mistake for Toastmasters. I've voiced that more than once, and I've possibly been blackballed from speaking at some Toastmaster events at this point. But we decided to be a top 10 club in Toastmasters, and it took us 5 years, and we built that club to 95 members. And in 1999, we were the number 4 club in Toastmasters worldwide. And that experience was such a transformative experience for me. But the way we did it was this. The reason our club was failing was because we had 2 presidents in a row that tried to command and oppress the people into competence. Nobody's going to be in this club unless you're a competent speaker. And they were trying to order people about. And we realized that's why the membership was leaving, wasn't coming to the meetings. We know that because we called them up and asked them why they weren't coming to the meetings. And we put a policy in that we maintain a fun-friendly environment. And with that was, and look, Toastmasters, I would say one of the biggest benefits of Toastmasters is the fact that as an organization, we will accept anybody in this organization. one of the biggest benefits. There are people that cannot belong to any other organization in the world, and they can belong to Toastmasters. One of the biggest detriments that Toastmasters has is that as an organization, we will accept anybody in this organization. So many times we get people in Toastmasters that are some of the oddest people you'll ever meet in the world, at least in my club, okay, my district. And I'd had these odd personalities that were doing so many things that were disrupting the meeting, or they were doing them wrong. And I just wanted to strangle them sometimes. But what I learned was just validate what they're doing right and tell them the things they're doing right. And I was amazed because we were trying to build the club and we realized we had to keep a high morale, winning attitude with everybody. And getting down on someone was what killed the club before. So we wanted to be a top 10 club, and that was the driving purpose behind us. And we started validating people for what they did right. We had one lady that she gave a 5 to 7 minute speech, and at 20 minutes we're polling, and she's like a third the way through her speech. She couldn't come in and on time to save her life. And when she came in on time on a table topics one time, everybody validated her, and she was like just thrilled. And now she comes in, it's amazing. She grew so much, but that negative reinforcement is what was killing everybody in the club and making it unfun. And we started just doing positive reinforcement on what they were doing right and never paid much attention to what they were doing wrong. Now, there were a few people we had to pull aside and, you know, have a little chat with. We had one guy that joined the club because he wanted to have his own personal dating service and at the club, and decided to date every woman in the club and a few things. And if you want to have some tension in your club, have 4 ex-women who are dated the same guy. It's, you know, it's a crazy scene. So there were some people we had to have some heart-to-heart talks with, but by and large, we validated what was right and what built the club. And then I started doing that at work. And probably the biggest compliment I've had in my life is I've had 3 or 4 different people as I finished projects or we finished, you know, businesses I was working on tell me I was the best boss they ever had. And that is probably the finest compliment I've ever had from anybody. So really a message of overcoming adversity, just understand there is no secret formula for success. Success happens making life happen every day, and you have to figure out how to make life happen, and you have to have the confidence that you can figure it out. And that's what I really see with Toastmasters. It gives us the opportunity. It's like going to the gym, and you don't go to the gym so you're the best, strongest person in the gym. You go to the gym so you can go, you know, ride your bicycle on the weekend or go sailing or go climb Kilimanjaro or something. That's why you go to the gym. And Toastmasters is there to build those communications and leadership muscles so that when we go out in life, we can handle the adversity and the odd personalities that we run into. And I'll just tell you, I'd have these weird people in my Toastmasters club, and I would go, where do they find these people? And I would be at work, or I'd be working with one of my community organizations, and that same personality would show up. And I would go, oh, there's someone just like you in my Toastmasters club. I know how to work with you. And that experience at Toastmasters gave me the skills to succeed like I wanted to in life. So let's do this. I've got probably about 5 or 6 minutes. I can still stay at my desk here, and then I'm going to switch over to my phone and I'll hop in my car and you'll get to drive down the road with me. But if we have some questions or topics you want me to address, I would be glad to do that. And I'm not sure who they're being sent to, Verity, or is it Anamika? So,
They can you can send topics to me privately, or just put them straight in the chat and I can start fielding them for Lance. But while we've got him with us, are there any pressing questions that you would like to put to Lance and hear his insights? And Lance, thank you so much so far. I've been taking notes. There's a lot standing out for me. So I'm just waiting for some things to come through in the chat.
I just want.
Yeah.
While we're waiting for a couple of questions, I have had a number of business situations I've been in that everything went off the rails. I had a product. I had one company I was working with in the food industry. It was a startup that ran into some real problems, and the partners went into a legal arbitration trying to sort it out. And I had to get a job. I had a friend at a plumbing company. So he said, come over and sell plumbing for me. And then the Cold War ended here between the US and Russia. And I was in California and the aerospace industry died and we went into a big recession and all the housing projects we had stopped. And all of a sudden I'm in this business and we don't have any business. We had a huge condominium complex that we were plumbing in West LA. And on Christmas morning, I woke up on the front page of the Los Angeles Times. There's a picture of that building burning down because it was arson. And so all of a sudden we're in this business and we have no way to make income and we have to survive. And we wound up changing it into a business that goes in and change the pipes out in homes, because in Southern California, most of the homes were plumbed with cheap galvanized pipe from Japan after World War II, and it all rusted up and the pipes were all clogged up. We had to rip the walls open and put new copper pipe in. But it was like, that was not the business we were in, but it was plumbing. We had to find the niche that was going to allow us to survive. And I probably have had a dozen of those experiences where you're in a business and either the economy changes, the technology changes, something changes, it's out of your control, like COVID-19. And you have to go, we're going to survive no matter what. Let's figure out where is the market? Where is the niche that we can actually create this thing and make it work? So let's see, Verity, do you have any questions yet?
Yeah, so I've got, someone's asking, and this is coming from Nick de Villiers, just going, did you focus on specific topics for your speeches? How did you decide what you were going to speak about?
The first 8 years, I was trying to come up with these brilliant, huge, worldwide topics that I felt would be worthy. And I was told by the founder of my club, who's a phenomenal lady named Roberta Perry, when I asked her, I said, what's the international speech competition? She said, that's like you had 5 to 7 minutes to speak to the world. So I went, holy smokes, this has to be something really important. And so after losing at the club for 8 years with these huge topics, like talking about, as an example, today would be global warming or, 5G technology or something along that line, the oceanic problems or something that had nothing to do with me. I'm driving to the club and I was rehearsing the speech in my car in the 9th year and I went, I don't want to give this speech. I'm going to lose the competition anyway. I might as well talk about something I want to talk about. So I rewrote the speech going to the club and just got up and gave the speech. I think there were 9 or 10 speakers that day at the club competition. I just got up and gave the speech, talked about what I wanted to talk about, and just talked to the people in the room, and I won the competition. And I started to realize that the topics had to be really connected to me. And I do a whole big thing. I'm doing a series now on my email on how to find your voice and find your topics. So if you go, my website is lancemillerspeaks.com. You can go there and sign up right on the front page. You can sign up for my email list and I send out all these speaking tips. But the big thing is I try to figure out, what have I experienced in my life that I feel would help somebody else in their life? What have I experienced? What have I learned that I don't want someone to have to go through life without that lesson and have the problems I had? I want to try to give you that lesson so you can be more successful, survive better in your life. And it's usually not big things, it's little things. It's little tiny things that you give people that help them. So I hope that
Beautiful.
That question. So that's a whole hour seminar, 3-hour seminar. Maybe bring me back for that one sometime.
I think that's very powerful, but just to have that premise of what have I learned in my life that will help someone else and save them the pain that I've gone through, I think you're always going to be speaking to a universal need. Beautiful. So Lance, as you're getting ready to get on the road, we've got a question from Francois Roux, which is, what was the most successful technique or process that you used to convert visitors to members? You went from 12 members to 95. How did you convert visitors to members? What worked for you? And Nick's saying thank you for that answer. It really helped him, by the way.
We had a dunking process.
Yeah.
It's like we had a dunking process. We would stick their head in a bucket of water until they signed the membership form, and it was very successful. You can't force someone to join Toastmasters. Yeah, I'm going to tell you just two things. As far as getting them to join, great meetings, and I'll tell you the thing that turned everybody was great evaluations. They'd sit in the meeting, they'd hear the speech, and they go, that was good. Well, when they saw the feedback that the people in that meeting were getting, they were like, oh my gosh, the insight. And we have great coaching. We call it coaching. We don't call it evaluation in my club, because I can evaluate you and tell you that your hair's messed up and you're too fat, and that's not going to help you, but it was an evaluation, right? So we want to coach you to a higher level. That's the whole purpose we're trying to do. So really the point that really convinced most of the people they wanted to be part of the club was when they heard the evaluations, because they watched the speech and they enjoyed it, but then when they saw what we understood about the speaking, they went, oh my gosh, this is incredible what you learn here. And the other thing, it was a fun experience for them. So fun, friendly environment and really good speech evaluation. So here's the point. The person's going to join a club if they feel that their life is going to be enhanced and they're going to improve. They're not going to join a club if they don't feel they're going to improve. And so if you create an environment, they go, wow, look what I could get out of this experience, they're in.
That's, yeah, very powerful. So having great meetings, those really powerful evaluations where people are coached to become more and better, making it friendly, and that they can see the benefit of what's in it for them. Thank you. I really like that. So our next one is from Anamika, our Toastmaster of the evening, and she wants to know what your take on happiness, nature, and leadership is, and how you think these elements work together. So we're throwing you in a good one. Your take on happiness, nature, and leadership, and how these things work together. I'm gonna have, that's a table topic.
In 90 seconds, right? Okay, I'm going to switch from my computer to my phone.
See how we go. Okay. And any other questions, please send them through to me so I can ask Lance, and you will get your answer from a highway in LA. And I'm sure none of us can say we've ever had that happen before. Let's see if he's...
So you guys can see me now, right?
Yes, there you are.
Hey, Verity,
Fantastic.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, all good.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Okay, good. So I'm going to start walking out. So here's the thing. You got to, and this is actually something I know something about. I was the president of an international nonprofit foundation called The Way to Happiness for 5 years. And I actually dug into the component aspects of happiness. And happiness, by definition, you get to see my garage right now. Happiness, by definition, is being inclined towards your goals. It's not actually an emotion, it's a condition. And so if you think about it, if you're moving towards your goals, you're normally happy. If you're moving towards your purposes in life, you're normally happy. And so what was it? It was, let me make sure my radio's off here. There we go. What was nature, and what else was it? I can't remember.
So it was nature, happiness, nature, and leadership, and kind of how they work together.
Okay, so here's the simplicity with leadership. And again, I read a great book on leadership. If you haven't read it, I recommend it. It's called The Dictionary. And if you look up the word lead, it actually means to go. The Latin derivation of the word lead means to go. And so you're going to go somewhere if you're leading people. And the whole aspect of happiness is to be inclined toward your goals.
Yeah. I think we've lost Lance. We're waiting for the magical reconnection.
And I was inclined towards...
There we go.
You got me there?
Yeah, you're back.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, we
Okay,
can.
good. What I was saying was that okay, in December, I was always very excited because at the end of December was this goal of opening my Christmas presents. And so I was inclined toward opening my Christmas presents all December. And one of the things I had done was I'd led international human rights 2,000 and 3,000 mile marathons through 17 countries in Europe. And every day we'd have a goal on where we had to hit. And that the morale of that team just went through the roof because every day we hit our goal and we hit the place we were going. So leadership and happiness in attainment of goals. As far as nature goes, I think it's natural to want to succeed. That's all I would take with that. But attainment of goals and accomplishing something is what brings about great happiness, and it is the result of effective leadership.
Awesome. Thank you. I think some beautiful insights in there. And
you still there?
yeah, we are. Can you hear me? There might be a delay.
I can hear you.
Okay, awesome. No, I was just saying that's also the wonderful benefit of taking on a leadership position and giving ourselves these goals and experiencing the joy of moving forward and accomplishing them with a sense of purpose. So some beautiful thoughts there. Thank you. I have a question from Suzanne asking, how do we become better evaluators and coaches? Could you give us some insights into that?
Well, first of all, yes, one of the things I would tell you, I have a free tips card on effective speech evaluation on my website. You can just download it for free as one of the things. But to me, speech evaluation is probably the most difficult thing we learn in the speaking aspect in Toastmasters. You have to understand how a speech should be so you know if it is not or not. And if you don't have some sort of an ideal to compare the existing speech to, then it's very hard to be a good evaluator. So it is a matter of really looking at what are the component parts the person is trying to achieve with it. But I'll give you some basics. First of all, how did the speech affect you personally? Because this is live communication we're experiencing. And so trust your own instincts on it. Don't think that, oh, I'm not a very good evaluator. I'm going to try to say something that I think a good evaluator would say. Just put your own integrity in on listening to the speech and say, how did it affect you personally? What really worked for me? What held my attention? What confused me? Or what distracted me from the message? And because the essence of a good speech is the takeaway that the audience got from it. So was there something the speaker was doing that didn't make sense? Was there something the speaker was doing, like he was rocking his arm or something, or he had his hand in his pocket jiggling his change or something that you felt was distracting you on it? So that's the key thing. I probably just right now, again, that's another hour conversation we can have on effective speech evaluation. But really, how did the speech affect you? And just be honest with yourself and give the speaker honest feedback on what the impact of the speech was on you.
Fantastic. I couldn't agree more. Evaluations are one of my favorite parts of Toastmasters, but it has to be authentic and from the heart. Beautiful. I'm just seeing if I've got any more questions. Are there any last questions from anyone before we let Lance go and get started with his day, as we are finishing our days here? Just seeing if anything's coming through.
I'm going to just pipe in here, Verity, for a second. Okay, I'm gonna pipe in with just sort of an overall. Here's the takeaway. If you haven't got it, here's the takeaway I want you to get. Being great at Toastmasters is, I mean, that's okay, but that's not, to me, where the game of Toastmasters is. The game of Toastmasters is, I got into Toastmasters, I wanted to be more successful in my life. And I used this program and I made my mistakes in Toastmasters. So, because see, Toastmasters, they don't care if you make a mistake. You know, they still give you a evaluation, a pat on the back. We'll see you next week. When I was at work, they cared if I made a mistake. And so I learned to build my competence in an environment where it was okay to fail. And so creating that type of environment, everybody I know, very few people that I know don't want to be more successful, or they've attained so much success that they can't have any more of it. Most people I know want to be more competent, want to be more successful, and that's really what we give people is that confidence and self-esteem that they can be effective in life. And I think if we really push that in Toastmasters, and if we figure out how to make Toastmasters work, we're going to gain skills to figure out how to make life work. But in the process, we're going to build a great Toastmasters organization.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm seeing a few other things. There's still more. People say, do you have any, as our Toastmaster year begins, do you have any advice for office bearers at all levels?
Well, the big thing is, look, as an organization, Toastmasters as an organization is designed to fail, okay? And the reason I say that is if you've ever been in an organization that had a frequent change of leadership, it was very unstable. Now, in Toastmasters, what we do is whenever we find somebody who's on a position and they're competent at it, we remove them and put somebody who's incompetent in that position. And so most officers that take on a job, it's an area of incompetency that they're taking on. The biggest thing is the jobs are not that difficult. As far as the officer positions go, I really recommend figuring out is work on them weekly and figure out what you have to do and what skills that you're going to personally get from this to make that work. And you've got to figure it out. And again, I do a whole program because I had to sort this out for my club. I have a lot of what I call organizational design experience on how to put a team together. And I applied that into Toastmasters. And for example, the vice president of public relations is probably one of the worst trained and named officer positions we have in Toastmasters. It really should be the vice president of promotion and marketing. And I said the end product of the vice president of PR is guests coming to the meeting. I don't care what you do. I don't care if you stand out and hand out 15 Rand, to every person walking down the street to get them to walk into the club. Get guests into the club. And then once the guests come in, the VP of membership, their product or the thing that they get evaluated by is how many people signed up as members. And the vice president of education is how many education completions did we get. And the sergeant at arms is, do we have a functioning meeting space and an on-time start to the meeting? That's what we look for. And so I sat down and broke down each one of those pieces. But anybody can do that. You just look at it and say, what do I have to do to be effective in this job? And dive into it. So what I see with so many officers is they sit there and they go, oh, I'm not sure what to do. So they do nothing. And then 2 months goes by and now they feel really bad because they haven't done anything. So again, that's something that's hard to answer in a 3-minute conversation driving down the 5 freeway in LA. But I'm more than glad to come back and we can talk about that sometime.
Oh, now you've said it, because I was waiting to see if we could get you back at some time. We'd love to have you back with us, Lance.
I'm not that hard to get along with. So.
But I think.
Any other questions there, Verity?
I'm not seeing anything else currently. I just thought we're coming to the end of our time, and I think we need to let you focus on driving. So what I've asked people to do, and it is working this time, is we're creating a little virtual thank you validation card for you, a little cha-chink, to say thank you for being with us. And so far, people are putting in how they are feeling at the end of your speech. And we've got motivated, excited, inspired, entertained, curious, dedicated, proud. And I think there's more coming in. A lot of people saying thank you. And someone's asking what your biggest learning was in the last year. So maybe you can sign off with that as something for us to think about.
Well, I didn't understand the sign off with what was the biggest thing I learned in the last year?
Yeah, what's been your biggest learning in the last year?
Oh, that's a good question. Because I'm so smart already. It's so hard to figure that out. No, biggest learning. You know, one of the really this whole COVID-19 thing has been a very interesting sort of arbitrary, antagonistic condition that we've all had to deal with. And what I've seen is that there's a huge silver lining to it. If it wasn't for COVID, I probably would not be on the call with you today.
Yeah.
And we've had people join our club, visit our club from Kenya. We just had a girl from New York join our club. We've got a guy from South Carolina join our club. We had somebody from Athens, Greece come to our club. And what I see is that there's a silver lining in everything that happens. And I don't know if this is the biggest learning experience. It's just reinforced the fact that with this adverse situation we have, there's a huge silver lining to it. But at the core of all that is the fact that it is our personal and emotional energy that drives life forward. And that is the difference. And we've all been with people that, maybe everything's going bad, then somebody shows up and they go, no, we're going to beat this thing. We're going to make it happen. And they start to put their personal, emotional energy into this in a positive way, and we see the thing turn around. And that is the essence of life and the essence of living, is our personal, emotional energy. And that's what we get to develop in Toastmasters, and that's also what drives these organizations. It's not necessarily meeting in person as much as it is meeting and uplifting each other with our personal, emotional energy as we move forward. So that's what I'll leave you with on that.
Well, thank you so much, Lance. There's so much coming through. There's lots of virtual high fives and clapping. People are feeling motivated, inspired, encouraged, curious, optimistic, dedicated, impactful. I think you have really added so much value to us here in Southern Africa, and everyone is so grateful. So thank you for joining us and for taking us on the road with you, and we'll definitely be in touch to have you back again, because you've touched on a lot and we'd love to chat more.
Verity, that'd be great. And if people want to do a survey or something and get questions in on topics they'd like to discuss, and I'll give you any insight I have on them. But I don't have all the answers. I will just tell you the biggest thing I've done is I picked up the ball and ran with it as hard as I could, both on the leadership side and on the speaking side. And there's a lot of mistakes that are behind the knowledge I have.